good, everybody? Welcome back to the One Take Podcast. Your host, your boy Emson, and I was actually gonna record a YouTube video today. I mean, like I am recording one right now, like for the podcast. But like, I was gonna record like a scripted video. I've had this script done for a while, like a couple weeks now. Actually, I've had it done for like a couple months, but I kind of returned to it, kind of revised it like a couple days ago, and I recorded it yesterday, and I didn't like it. I just didn't like the execution. I didn't like a lot of things about it. I don't know. Maybe I just took too long to record it, and because I wrote it a while ago, and now it's just lost its fire. But I tried recording it yesterday, and it didn't work out. So I tried re-recording it just now, and I don't know. Like I just didn't feel like it, and I felt like I don't think I should force making a video when I don't feel like I want to make it. Does that make any sense? Like I don't want to force anything, any creativity that's forced to happen, because I feel like if I force creativity out of myself and like just pull it out of my ass, like I feel like it's just not gonna be as genuine, be as good, and just be good to me, you know? Like I don't think I'll love it, and like I do this because I love it. And I think another reason why I didn't end up doing it was because it's a fashion video. And let me explain why. So, like I said before in the first episode of this, my whole point of like growth into this next year of videos and YouTube is to stray away from all that, you know? And I feel like I'm catching myself going back to the trap of going back into the fashion niche and just making videos off that because it's safe. Like I just released a video the other week, last week, about like five steps into becoming a fashion influencer, because I wanted to put everybody on game. Like it wasn't supposed to be like a fashion video per se. It was more so like helping people, like putting y'all on game, and like helping people try to achieve their dreams, because for some people this is like their goal, their dream. Some people are interested in this hobby, or interested in this line of work, this passion, this creativity, whatever you want to call it. And I didn't make it for me. I made it for y'all. As much as I want to say I made it for me, I did make it for the audience, because I wanted to give back knowledge, because I wouldn't be where I am today, and I wouldn't have learned those experiences today if it weren't for everybody that supported me. So I just wanted to give back. And when I made it, I feel like it was totally fine. Like I feel like it wasn't necessarily like a fashion like tutorial or a step by step. It was more so it was more so the fashion niche itself being kind of the guide to the actual video concept, which is just 5 steps on how to be a creator in general. But I used fashion as an example because that was the niche I used to become a full-time content creator. And I'm sorry not to like the phrase content creator or the label content creator. It's kind of giving me the same vibes as influencer. Like I hate influencer content creator, but that's a whole nother story. But yeah, so I feel like that was fine. But like the idea that I was gonna make today / yesterday was like five of my biggest fashion regrets, and it was gonna consist of like, oh, I always spent money on fast fashion, or don't buy designer clothes, and blah 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 blah. And like I had that ready, and I don't know, it just didn't feel like it was coming out properly. And I truly believe that it's because in my mind, it's safe to make content like that, because I know that's the niche I'm known for. I feel like people trust that I know a little bit about what I'm talking about. I feel like people will relate, and I feel like it'd be a good video. I feel like I feel like it would be a great video to make. But my heart says different. Like my heart is saying like that's not what I should make. Like I started this journey for a reason. I cut that shit off for a reason. Like it's not. I didn't fully cut off like fashion niche or anything creative like that. I love that shit. But like for my personal self, in order to grow it beyond further than what I've ever dreamed of, I have to take these risks and not just do what feels safe, what feels comfortable, and what I think I'm only capable at. Like I'm capable of more things than I really know, and I'm not gonna be able to know how capable I am of things until I test myself, until I limit test myself and cut off what's comfortable to me and put myself in uncomfortable positions, because the biggest points of growth happen in the most uncomfortable situations in our life. And I feel like it's not that I keep putting myself back into comfortable situations. I feel like we just naturally and instinctively want to be in comfortable situations, and situations that don't give us anxiety or fear, or feel like we're gonna fail, or just negativity in general. Like I feel like we're anxious and we're scared of failure, and that's totally okay. And I feel like I just needed to unlearn and relearn that, like it's okay to fail, because failure is just the next step to success. Like it's not a do or die. It's not like a two path situation where one is fail, one is success. It's just one line, and you create your own path. You run into failure sometimes, and then you run into successes, and then you run into like five failures before you can hit the big success. But then even when you hit the success, like it doesn't really matter, because then you're already on to the next thing. So it's kind of like failure. Why can't I see failure like I see success? Because when I see success, it's like, oh, I got it. Like I did it. Okay, well, now it's time for the next thing, right? I learned from my successes that, like, what can I do to succeed again? But I should see failure the same way, as in like, oh man, I failed. Okay, what can I learn from here to make sure I don't fail again, or to make sure I succeed the next time? You know what I mean? Like I feel like I've talked about this before in the first episode, but like I feel like it's just a reoccurring lesson that I have to keep learning and just keep reminding myself to do, because I find myself coming into this trap, you know what I mean? But yeah, like I just didn't want to force another video out of me, like that I just didn't believe in, like I did believe in it, but that just didn't feel creatively, fully, and genuinely something I wanted to put out. You know what I mean? Because like I said, I do want to stray away from just being a fashion guy, from just the fashionista. I don't want to be known as the TikTok guy, fashion guy, TikTok fashion anime guy. I want to be known as myself, Emson Mallari, my brand. You know what I mean? I want to be known as a person, not just a channel, not just a content creator, not just an influencer. That's why I kind of hate those labels, because it's like my brand is not content creator, my brand is not influencer, my brand is me. You know what I mean? And so I did make, like, originally I made this podcast just to talk about just whatever, but like I feel like I'm realizing that it's more of just like my self journal. I don't really like making journals. I know it's super good for you, and I've done journaling before, and it really does help, like, clear your head, clear your mind, especially me. I got like ADHD. So like it's it's a way for me to really just unbottle my thoughts, and it's like a second brain for me, somewhere I could, because I feel like with me, I just have so much in my head, like constantly playing. It's like I feel like there's like, if like, for people with ADHD out there, you'll probably understand, but it feels like 10 people talking to you at the same time, but it's all you talking to you. But there's like a reoccurring song or reoccurring sound that's also constantly playing in your head, but you're also trying to focus on what you're doing. And it's not the fact that you're distracted. It's feel you're more hyper focused, but there's just more noise around you. Does that make any sense to people without ADHD? I don't know, but that's just how my mind feels. And so I feel like journaling really helped that, but I just didn't like the actual action of like writing things out. Like it really bored me, because I feel like I had so much to say, and I feel like writing it, like I just wasn't writing fast enough. I wasn't processing my mind fast enough to write it out. And so I feel like recording it and just like talking about it, putting it into the universe, putting it into, the vibrations is going to help me more beneficially. Like, you know what I mean? Like, cause like as much as I do want to love, as much as I do, and I love creating for audiences, and I love creating content for people, I need to create for myself. I need to, like I said before, like in my first episode, like this is my outlet. I don't want to just treat YouTube as a content machine. I need to treat it as like an outlet for myself. So yeah, like this, I feel like this podcast, one take podcast, one take show, whatever I want to call it, is just more so just my personal journal of how I'm feeling. You know what I mean? Because I feel like we all need a place to just talk about how we feel. And that, whether that be therapy, whether that be with our friends, whether that be with ourselves, whether that be just our family, anywhere, something to talk to, something to let out our inner feelings, our inner thoughts, and just a place where we can feel safe enough to be vulnerable and to face our feelings and face the things that we've been avoiding, because that's really what stress is and what anxiety is. You know what I mean? You're avoiding and you're procrastinating stress and your feelings, and so it just keeps building up and building up and building up until you no longer can take it anymore, and then eventually you just snap, like you just release it all. And if it's all bottled up, you just release what you're feeling. And I feel like everybody needs some kind of outlet to relieve that. And I know, like, I do have a lot of hobbies that like help me get out of it. Like I like dancing, I like playing games, and I like doing other things. Even watching movies is like an outlet for me to just calm out my feelings. But I feel like those are more like it kind of helps you cope and calm how you're feeling, but it doesn't really help you solve them. You know what I mean? But another thing is like not all your problems have to be solved right away. And that's something I'm learning this year is that like I have a bunch of problems. Everybody has problems, you know what I mean? And nobody's problems take away from anybody else's. We all have problems. Well, no matter how heavy everybody's problems matter. But the thing is like not all you don't have to solve them right away all the time. I know we would want to solve them because that would get all the problems and all the weight off our shoulders, but sometimes you just need to feel. Sometimes like people forget that emotions are things that we feel. Emotions are there telling us that telling us how emotions are basically like what tells us like how to feel. I don't know how to explain it, but like emotions are there to be felt, not to be solved. I think that's a better explanation to what I'm trying to get at. But like yeah, like our emotions aren't meant to be solved, they're meant to be felt. Our problems are meant to be solved. You know what I mean? And so I think we use our emotions as a cue to let us know that there is a problem. But you don't solve the emotion, you kind of feel it out first. So what I've been doing in my own life recently is just like anytime I have some kind of strong emotion of fear, doubt, regret, negativity, some kind of unhappiness, depressing feeling or anxiety, like anything, I kind of just write it out. I can't avoid it. You're not going to avoid it. I'm not going to solve it. I just write it out. Like, what am I feeling? And I just feel it out. Like shit happens and like it doesn't feel good, but at least you're feeling it. You feel it, you learn how to feel it. You learn why you're feeling. Because you're never going to really break down and understand how you're feeling unless you actually give yourself time to feel it fully, 100%, and accept that emotion, accept that feeling inside of you. Until you learn to feel your emotions, you're never going to be able to understand them and solve your problems. And so that's what I've been doing. Like I've been just feeling it out. If it's shitty, it's shitty. And I just go about my day feeling shitty. I don't take it out on anybody. I just feel it. You know what I mean? I put myself in a solace and feel it, whether it's through music, movies, whatever. Like I just feel what I feel to try to understand where it's coming from. And once I start feeling it and try and understanding why am I feeling this? Where is this coming from? Is it coming from past trauma? Is it coming from something that I'm avoiding? Is it coming from a person? Is it coming from something I'm lying about to myself deep within? I don't know. And that's like the point where I start to figure it out after I feel it, because once I understand the emotion, I could try to break it down and understand where it's coming from. And once I understand where it's coming from, I accept it. And you know what? Like after a couple days, I'm like, you know what? This feeling doesn't really bother me anymore. And then you have a clear conscience of you have a clear conscience of figuring out what the problem is, of why you're feeling what you're feeling, and figuring out how to solve it. Because once you're in an emotional state and like you haven't felt your feelings yet, your mind's clouded. It's almost like biasing yourself into thinking that like you can't solve it because like you just I just feel like your mind is so clouded with the emotions of what you're feeling and what you're going through that you don't have that clarity into solving what you need to solve and figuring out what you need to solve. So by feeling your emotions and just writing it out, you start clearing the clouds and start putting the pieces away, putting the pieces that you need together in order to solve your problems. And so that's what I've been doing. Like, I know I sound like a bum guy. I feel it. I figure out what I'm feeling. I'm figuring out why I'm feeling it. And then I see the problem and then I realize, you know what? It's not as bad as I really thought. And it's a solvable problem. And I feel like that's a big issue with people. I feel like people don't realize that their problems are very solvable. They're very easy to handle. It's just the fear behind realizing what it is and how it's making you feel is clouding your judgment on your ability to solve things. If that makes any sense. I don't know if I'm making any sense here, and I feel like I'm word vomiting, but I don't know. Once you just have clarity on your issues and you see it for what it is, they're not really that bad, and you kind of get a sense of how to solve it yourself. And you don't really need anybody's help. And that's why I always say not a lot of people actually need advice when they ask people for advice. People need reassurance and just comfort when they come to people for advice or tips or anything. I feel like deep down people really know what their problems are and how they want to solve it. They just need that reassurance or some guidance into making the proper decision that they really want to make deep down. Because do you ever find yourself in like an instance where, let's say you have an issue and you go to like 4 people for advice, or like how many people for advice, and they're giving you the same answer, but you keep asking different people, even though people are giving you the exact same answer, is because you know the decision you want to make. You just want you just want to hear somebody agree with you. You need somebody to comfort you. You don't need somebody to solve your problems. You just need somebody to hear you out and let you know that you're doing the right thing. And the problem with that is you just go through so many opinions, and then you start to doubt yourself when people are telling you the thing that you don't want to hear. And some people are telling you what you need to hear. Who knows? But like in this instance, where you already have your mind up and you kind of already know what like your solution is to your problem, having other people's opinions kind of strays you away from that. And it's in these times where, like I said before, you just need to feel it out, because I feel like once you feel it out and you yourself know what you're feeling, because nobody's going to know what you're feeling. Nobody's going to know your true emotions on how you feel about your problems. Only you will understand that. And so when you go to these people, they don't understand what you're going through fully. You can tell them as much as you want in full detail, but they're not going to know how you're feeling. And that's why I feel like people are giving you an answer to your problems, and that's not the answer you want to hear, because you already know the answer, because only you know how you feel about it, like truly feel about it. And that's why I feel like people don't really ask people for advice. They're asking really for comfort. You know what I mean? And I feel like the only person that can really solve your problems is yourself. And it's a very mature thing to understand. I feel like it does feel a little bit more surface level. And I feel like it feels very face value, like, oh, you should just solve your own problems because you know what your own problems are. Like, yeah, like it's easier said than done. But to actually have the emotional maturity and awareness, self-awareness, emotional awareness, and just knowing how you're feeling and understanding your emotions is a huge, huge mature turning point in anybody's life, And sometimes we will never truly figure it out and understand it for a while. It takes a long time to have that emotional awareness, emotional maturity. And it takes going through a lot of shit, and not only going through a lot of shit, but figuring it out and overcoming a lot of shit. Because humans can go through a lot of shit, But what makes somebody emotionally mature and aware is the person that overcomes all that shit. Because somebody can go through a lot of shit and then not overcome any of it, and they just succumb to their own mental stability, and they succumb to their own fears, and they succumb to their own negativities and doubt and all that, and they don't learn from it. And that doesn't really make that person as emotionally mature or aware. That doesn't mean that they're not mature. That doesn't mean they are dumb or not smart because they don't know how to solve their problems. They are just not as emotionally mature as they can be. And that's fine. Some people don't get there till they're older. Some people get there when they're younger. And it really depends on how you grow up. You have a lot of trauma. Do you run away from your problems? Do you face them head on? You know what I mean? And you're never going to really be on the same page as anybody else's emotional maturity or awareness, because we're all different. We all go through different shit. We all go through different the weight of our problems are different from other people's. Some people have really heavy problems like death, abandonment. You know what I mean? And some people have other issues of just like like imposter syndrome or insecurities. And yes, they weigh some of those problems weigh a little bit different, but that doesn't mean they don't matter or one matters more than the other. They both matter. It's just all a matter of taking these problems and learning from them, you know, learning how to feel, learning how to overcome these problems. And what's going to help you with that is just, again, coming back full circle, just letting you feel those emotions. At least that's what I learned from me. Because I've gone through a lot of shit in my own personal life. You know, death being one of the biggest ones, abandonment, imposter syndrome, a lot of shit, you know? And it took me a long, long time to face and accept what I was really feeling. Years even. Because I didn't know. I didn't know, and I was pushing it away. I was procrastinating how I feel. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just didn't know how to really, I just didn't know what I was feeling. I really truly didn't know what I was feeling, because a lot of my shit happened in my younger days. You know, I'm only 23. I say that like I'm some kind of old head, but like I'm only 23, you know, but a lot of this shit happened in my early life. And as a child or as a kid, teenager, like there's just so much other things going on, and like you just haven't gone through enough you haven't gone through enough life yet, and you haven't gone through enough experiences and years that you just don't know what you're feeling or why or how to overcome these things. And it wasn't until like years later where I went through a lot of experiences that were similar or different experiences that I could like learn from and take to help these problems of my own. It wasn't until I learned about like heartbreak and passion, like it wasn't until I learned about like heartbreak, loss of passion, imposter syndrome, until I started to realize why I started to feel these old emotions. See, sometimes new experiences and new like thoughts that you learn and new things that you just like learn throughout life will help you overcome things in your past. You know, because I feel like for life, time isn't really linear. You don't just like, oh, this shit happens, I solve it, I overcome it, and then boom, I go to the next thing. No, sometimes you have issues that you don't resolve. Years later, you find other experiences in your life, and then you realize, you know what, maybe this is why I felt that before. And then you solve that, and then it all starts to piece by piece come together. You learn something from overcoming something in your past, which helps you overcome something in your future, which helps you overcome something in your present. And you know, it's just full round and round. Life is just not linear like that. Life doesn't work like that. You don't always live in the present, and as much as you should. And the power of right now is very strong. Sometimes there's just things that happen. You know, anxiety has us living in the future. Trauma has us living in the past. You know, and it's until we face those traumas and anxieties then where we'll be able to fully live in the now. Because the power of now is so important. Because imagine like this is you, right? This is the present you. You got past you and future you. Past you and future you only exist because you haven't overcome your past trauma. You haven't overcome your anxieties for the future. And so this 100% you is now living in three different timelines. 30% in the past, 33% in the past, 33% in the present, and 33% in the future. So now you're not 100% here. And I feel like that's how we fall into these issues of anxiety and not being able to move forward. And we fall into these traps of paralysis. That's the perfect word. We fall into these traps of paralysis because we're overanalyzing things. And you know how the saying goes, overanalysis leads to paralysis. It's because we're always analyzing our traumas. We're overanalyzing things and becoming anxious about our futures that we're never really truly fully living now. We're living in three different timelines. But imagine you overcome your traumas. Imagine you put away and just aren't anxious about the future and just worry about right now. Think about you right now. This is 33% of your potential right now. Think about that. Now imagine you with 100. Imagine what you could do with that. You know? It's kind of like how people say like we only use 10% of our brain, which actually I heard somebody say like we don't actually only use 10% of our brain. We use 10% of our brain at a time. I don't know if that's true. But anyways, sidetrack. But imagine like, you know how people say we only use 10% of our brain and people say, oh, what if we can use 100% of our brain? Like, it's kind of like the same shit. Like, what if instead of thinking about our past trauma and worrying about the future, we use all that brain function now and have 100% of our genuine self, our self, 100% of our true self locked in the present. Think about what you can do when you're not worrying about the past or when you're not worrying about the future or thinking about the past. And that's easier said than done. Like I said, it all comes down to you overcoming your past traumas. It all comes down to like not like being in a place where you don't have to worry about the future. And it could be because it could be a lot of things that cause that stuff, you know, like not fully facing how you feel and your issues and things that you're avoiding are giving you past trauma that are unresolved past trauma, and things that you're worrying about, like the future, or that self-doubt is making you worry about the future. And in order to be a hero 100%, you got to overcome that shit, you know? And like I said, it's easier said than done. Like how do I do this, Emson? How do I overcome my traumas? How do I stop worrying about the future? I don't know the answer. Like I said, all I've been doing right now is just feeling my emotions and truly like breaking it down on why I feel a certain way. Let's give it an example. Like right now, one of the biggest things I'm struggling with is paralysis. I'm honestly talking about these things because I'm experiencing this right now. Like burnout. Let's say burnout and doubt. I like to say I'm a really confident person. I'm pretty confident in my abilities. I have a pretty high ego with myself. Not in a bad way. I just feel like I believe I could do whatever I set my mind to. But as of recently, I feel like it might just be an adulting thing where I'm 23 and other people are graduating school. I never went to college. Some people are even having families. That's not even in my headspace right now. You know what I mean? Like there's just a bunch of shit that's going on around me, and like it's easy to compare yourself to people, and I really try not to. But it gets to a point where you see yourself and you're like, you know what? I'm 23 years old. Like what am I like? I'm reaching a point to my life where I know I don't need to figure it out all right away, but I need to have a plan. And I feel like that's where I've been burning out, because the true way to really figure your shit out and why you keep failing at the same thing is because you don't have a proper system. And I've been trying to figure out what that system is for myself, what works. And I don't know, like I just feel like I'm in a sense of burnout where I can't move on with my life because of things that I'm not understanding yet with myself. And that's what I'm trying to figure out right now. Like, I think that's why I started this YouTube channel. Like I said, like I burnt out with the fashion shit. Being honest with you, I burnt it out. Like I feel like I've done as much as I can. Not as much as I can, like fully, but I feel like I've done a lot to where like it's not really as enjoyable anymore for me, you know? And I feel like I'm starting to learn what that's making me feel and why I'm feeling that way. And so how am I overcoming it? I'm overcoming it by just creating this shit. My bad. I got really hot and I started getting itchy. But yeah, like I feel like my bad. It got really hot and I started getting like sweaty and itchy. But yeah, like I feel like right now I've just been in like a sense of burnout where I just don't know I just don't know what to make, you know? And like I feel like I've been lost in that. I feel like I've been lost in like this is all I've known for like the past 3 years. What can I do to change? Because nothing will change if you don't change, you know? And I feel like I keep thinking like, you know what? This worked for me before on how I blew up. And so if I do that same system, it'll work again. But that's not how it worked, because at the time of when I started blowing up on TikTok and when I started becoming like a full-time creator, I was a different person. So different things, that system only worked for that version of me. I'm a different version of me every single day, whether it's a small change every day, whether it's a big change. Every day I have a new update. I'm like a computer. I update all the time. I update every day, whether it's a small little patch, whether it's a huge complete update, whether it's a whole rewrite of code. Like, I'm a different person every day. I'm a different person every month, every year, every decade. You know what I mean? So the person I was 3 years ago when I started blowing up isn't who I am today. So that system of what I was using isn't going to work for me today. And so I got to find a new system for myself today. What do I know what that is? I don't know. But I know where to start. I feel like I've had more experience of where to start on how to build new systems. And I feel like that comes with building good habits. You know what I mean? And starting to change, like, what are my weaknesses? Like, I feel like for the past couple of years, I've noticed my strengths and figuring out how to capitalize and use what's unique about me and really double down on what makes me special and different, and using that to my advantage, making my strengths stronger. But in doing so, I've neglected my weaknesses. And so those weaknesses never caught up to my strengths. And so those weaknesses are holding me down even more. And so now I got to figure out what my weaknesses are and how to overcome them. And I feel like that's something I got to work on this year, is patching up the weaknesses in myself, all the holes in myself. Is it my trauma? Is it my worries for the future? Maybe both. I feel like I've come to a point where I've accepted and faced my past already. So there's really no point in pursuing that further. I feel like I'm in a content place where I can live life without having to think about that shit anymore and just focus on what's ahead of me. I think my problem now is that, like, I'm focusing too much of what's ahead of me and worrying about the person I will be in 5 years and not the person I am right now. And so now I have this 50-50 split of my identity of me right now, my identity of who I think I'll be in the next 5 years. And I'll never really know who I will be in the next 5 years. You can create an idea of yourself, of who you are in the future, and then you can manifest it into reality, But you can't manifest it and, like, truly work to being there if you're only living in that future self and not working on who you are at the moment. You're not fixing your system, And I feel like one of my biggest issues is, like, I'm burnt out and I'm worrying about the future because I'm burnt out. Because I'm burnt out and I don't feel like I have the same creativity, or I feel like I'm just not flowing with inspiration or motivation right now. I feel like I'm not producing the best work, which is giving me the anxiety that I will have shitty videos, or I can't make content, and that's gonna that's worrying me, because I'm like, well, I gotta survive. I need this to financially survive. I need to figure out my careers. I need to figure out all this and blah 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 blah. Like, I don't want to be a bum in the future. I feel like I'm holding myself back out of fear of out of fear of becoming the worst version of myself. I'm holding myself back out of fear of becoming the worst version of myself in the future. But why am I scared when that's not even a reality? You know what I mean? Like, it's not real. So what am I afraid of? Like, instead of worrying about who the failure I could be, why don't I just think about who I am today and make sure that shit doesn't happen? Because I just need to stop figuring out, like, who I think I'll be, because I'll never know. I'll never really know. And not everything works out to how exactly you want it, as much as you would want that to. And that's just life. But sometimes it can work out better. And you can't focus on that. You got to focus on now. And I picked up the book called The Power of Now. And I've been meaning to read it. My girlfriend actually bought it for me. Shout out to her. But, and I've been meaning to read it. I just haven't gotten to reading it. But I feel like that shit should help me focus on myself, who I am now, and to stop splitting myself between my present self and my future self, and put it 100% into who I am, putting all the 100% work into who I am now. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I have this sense of imposter syndrome and thinking I don't deserve what I have right now, or I'm not as great as I think I could be, is because of me worrying about the future. And I don't know if that makes sense. Maybe I don't even actually have imposter syndrome. That's just what I think. But I don't know. It's just I feel like I've never really had a lot of doubt in my life, in myself at least. But I feel like, I don't know, just this year, I just feel like I've had a lot of doubt in myself that I want to get rid of. You know, I have to really just pick it apart and truly see my own greatness and not my weakness. You know what I mean? And it's okay to have weakness. Weakness makes us human. You know, we can't always be strong. We can't always be brave. We can't always be courageous and the embodiment of amazingness. You know what I mean? Like, we have to have that weaknesses. Every great person out there had their weaknesses. Achilles, you know what I mean? Great example. Fucking A1 invincible warrior. His only weakness was his heels. You know what I mean? But everybody out there has their weakness. And it's about figuring out how you can either overcome it or feel less pain towards it and fear it less, you know? Because at the end of the day, the only thing, I don't want to fear anything. I don't want to fear failure. I don't want to fear the future. I don't want to fear nothing. I just want to feel like I'm just living, you know? And there will be moments of fear, but I want to be able to just overcome that whenever I can, through adversity, through perseverance, and just get through it. Just body that shit, because the best things in life are on the other side of fear. I don't want to keep haltering my own potential and my own abilities because I'm afraid, you know? And I don't know where this sense of like fear came from. Maybe it's because I don't know. I have to really figure that shit out for myself. And if you're feeling a certain way, like me, let me know how you're figuring it out, because I'm still figuring that out as an adult. Maybe it's actually becoming because I'm an adult. You know, I'm starting to worry about a lot of different things that I didn't have to worry about. Rent. I just moved to a different city, and maybe that's why I moved to a different city, to be uncomfortable, because I was so comfortable in my hometown. Shout out Winnipeg. All my friends, all my family, everything I ever knew was there. Everything like that made me Emson. My identity is attached to my hometown, Winnipeg. And I feel like when I moved out to Toronto, I feel like a part of my identity was just gone, you know? Because a lot of my identity was the people I surrounded myself with, my hometown, where I grew up. Yeah, I feel like a lot of my identity is attached to my hometown, where I grew up, who I grew up around. And so coming to a new city where I'm so uncomfortable, I don't know anybody. I don't know where places are. I don't know the city. Like, I do, but I don't. Like, I wasn't born here. I wasn't raised here. I don't go here that often, you know? Well, now I do because I live here. But I feel like, yeah, like I feel like I was just stripped away of who I am. And I feel like that's part of the reason why I'm so afraid of who I'm going to become, because I don't know who I am now. Huh. That's funny. I'm just starting to realize this now and piecing it, because I feel like before, when I lived in my hometown, shout out Winnipeg again, man, hidden gem. But I feel like when I was living there, like, I knew who I was. I knew my identity. I knew people. I knew my city. I knew everything about myself. And so I could kind of like envision a future of myself. But because I'm in a new place where I don't know anything, I don't know a lot of people, I don't know who I am anymore. And so I'm losing that sense of control. I feel like it's that. It's like, I feel like I'm losing control of life and myself and my own life. I feel like because because I'm uncomfortable, because I don't know who I am anymore, and I don't know what actually makes me me without the external things, because I feel like externally I feel like I know the external parts of what makes my identity, what makes Emson, but I don't really understand the internal parts of me that create my identity. And that's all what identity and ego is. It's like your external and your internal balance. between yourself. And I feel like I've maybe relied and been comfortable with my external identity that or external things that help me figure out that part of my identity, but I've never really focused on my internal identity of who I am, really, really am, without anything else, without a career, without friends, without family, without my loved ones, without materialistic things, without anything. If I got stripped away, if everything in my life was stripped away, who am I still today by myself? And I feel like that's something I don't understand and I'm losing control of. And that's what's giving me anxiety and what's making me worried about who I could be, you know? And I still got to sort through those problems, man. I still got to sort through those issues. I don't know how. I don't know how, but I'll figure it out. But yeah, I guess this episode really helped because I feel like I'm starting to understand like who I am now or like understanding what I'm feeling at least, you know, full circle, right? You got to understand how you feel, got to understand your emotions, and then you got to feel them out and break it down. Like I said before, and I feel like I'm in this phase right now where I'm just feeling it and finally knowing where it's coming from. And this came from talking to y'all, and I appreciate y'all for listening. But yeah, actually that feels like a really nice thing off my chest. You know what I mean? Because I feel like a lot of people can relate, and that's why I'm talking about this stuff. As much as I am talking about this for myself, and it's like my own journal, and just to feel better about myself and help me figure out what I'm actually feeling and just help me solving that. Like I feel like I'm also making this for the people who are going through something similar or don't know how to also, you know, go through their emotions, go through their pains and their issues. And maybe it'll help, maybe it won't. Maybe you're just here to listen. Maybe you're here and listening and it's helping you with your shit, you know? And if it does, then I'm glad to have helped because this is really helping me. You know, it's like a therapy session, you know, except I'm not a therapist, you're not a therapist. We're just listening to each other's problems. Or really you're just listening to mine and then you'll listen to yours later. I don't know. But honestly, yeah. I think I'm gonna end the episode there. I feel pretty content where I'm ending this. Um but yeah, like I said, like I just wanted to come on here and just let it out. You know, this is my journal. One take, baby, one take podcast. Um, no topics, no nothing. It's just freestyle on some fucking Kendrick shit. You know what I mean? But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, and subscribe if you want to see more. Like the video if you like the video. You know, if you're feeling a sort of way, let's have a conversation in the comments. Maybe we can talk it out. Maybe I can help you. Maybe you can help me. Let me know your thoughts on anything at all. And I hope all of you overcome your traumas and your worries through adversity and courage, bravery, and overall content. You know, I'm going to end it there. Thank you guys for watching. One take. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Take care, everybody. Love, Emson. Peace.